Okay, my friends, now I have the first example file open here, which is object scope HTML, and I gonna open the same file here with the live server by clicking on object scope HTML. Now, what I will do is that I make this windows smaller. So the browser window here, I move to the right like this, and as you can see, what happens is that the right part here jumps down to the bottom. So it's now here on the bottom, okay? But I make it a little smaller, so it's about half of the screen now, okay? And also the editor, I will use more or less half of the screen. Okay? So what you can do, that you can see everything here in the editor, is that you use the key combination Option and Z. So you have a line break here and you don't have to scroll here to the right. Okay, so now that we opened this with live server, if I do any change here and save it, you should see the result directly here on the right. Let's try that out, and here in the H1, for example, where it says object and scope, I just add some letters here and I go on save. And here you see the result immediately here on the right. If you don't see the result here immediately on the right, please make sure you started your live server with right mouse click and then you go on open with live server. Alright, let's delete that here again. Now, as you can see up here, we will learn the first two directives of Alpine.js in this lecture. As you know, in every programming language, you have some kind of data. And this can be variables, this can be text files or other files, this can be databases. But in Alpine.js, we get this data in form of objects. So JavaScript objects. I will show you an example now. In Alpine.js, those objects are always connected to a HTML tag. Like for example this div here. That's an HTML tag. But we will use the body tag now. So let's go with your cursor behind this opening body tag here, and let's hit space, and then we say just X. And when we type X, we get all the Alpine.js directives here that are available. Those suggestions here come from the Alpine.js plugin that we installed before. Alright, so let's put an X data here, X minus data, and then I don't even have to type it completely. I just now can hit my tab key on the keyboard and it will autocomplete like this with two double quotes here. So within those double quotes here, we can define our object. I usually do it like this, that I immediately hit the enter button on my keyboard like this. And then I go on the tab button, and then here I define my object. So JavaScript objects are always within some curly braces, like this. And then you have a key and a value. And the key and the value is separated by a colon, like this. So, for example, we could call this key body object. Okay? And then comes the value. So the value can have different data types. It can be a string, then you use those single quotes and you type your string. But it can, for example, also be a number, or it can be a Boolean like true or false or whatever. It also can be an array, and it also can be another object, but we will come to this later. All right. In this case, I just want to use a string, and I want to say this is the body object. Okay? Like this. Now let's talk a second about the word scope here. Scope means the area or the place within your HTML document where your object will be visible. So as we defined this object here within the body tag, it means that our object will be visible in the whole body of our HTML document. That is scope. So what I want to do now is that I display this body object here down here where it says placeholder, body var placeholder. So I want to replace this placeholder here with this body object. And for the display of this object, we use the new directive x-text. X-text will create an output. So let's find this place here with body var placeholder. So I scroll down a little bit here in my HTML, and here I have body var, and then I have a span with placeholder here. And now comes an interesting thing that you have to know. We defined our object within HTML up here with xData. So the output of an object will be also within an HTML tag. So we go down there and we will make the output within the span tag here. So we go behind the word span, we hit enter, and then we use x-text. I hit the tab key, and again I have this double quotes here. And here within those double quotes, I just can place the name of the key that I defined up here. And that was body object. Let's copy this. Let's go down there again and paste it in here. All right. So xText is body object. Let's save. And as you might have seen here, it changed. Now behind body var, there we have the output of our object with the key body object, and then we have this text. This is the body object that we defined up here in the body. All right. So as you can see, the placeholder that was there before now disappeared. Okay? We had this placeholder and it's not there anymore. But we will take care of this problem later, so we can also have some text there that is combined with our object. Okay, let's do the next example. As you can see here on the right, we have those two divs, div1 and div2. Now let's also display the body object here within div2. So what I can do is that I just copy this span here that we used up here. I just copy it and I go to div2 where it says here, this is div2 with the BG green here. And I go just after those two breaks and place it in here, save, and okay. Here we also have the body object, right? So as you can see, we can use one object several times. Of course, like a variable that you can use several times. All right. Now let's do another one. Let's go here to div1. So here it says, this is div1, okay? So we go directly here within div1 after the div, and we define another object. So we say xData. xData is, for example, the key we'd say is div1 object like this, and then the value is, let's say, div1 object, okay? And then we can already output the same object in the same HTML tag. So what we could do is we can do the output directly here. So we can say xtext here, and we say div1 object. Like this. Let's hit save. And now this headline here, this bold text, was replaced with div1 object. Okay. So this I just did to show you that you can use, of course, the same HTML tag to define data and to output data. All right. Now, this is all seems to be very easy and very obvious. But now I want to show you what will not work. And this is very important to avoid frustration in the future. So the first thing that I want to try is that I want to output this div1 object here down there in div2. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I just show you quickly. So here in div2, after this span, I make a break here. And then I say, for example, div1 object, colon, and then I define another span like this. And this span, I give a x text of div1 object. Okay? And then you see here this text before the span. We have this one here is there, but we will not see the object. And always when you have something like this, what you can do is to open up your DevTools in Chrome with right mouse click. And then you go to the console here, and here you will see immediately that you have an error. In this case, it says div1 object is not defined. Just for the case when you're not sure what's going on. All right. So The same thing that we tried here with div1 object, we can also try just in the normal body. So without div2, we can try it to copy this. So I say div1 object, I copy this expression here. And I go just in my normal body here below body var, okay? I paste it in here, save, and we have the same thing. Div1 object is empty, okay? So as you can see, if you define an object within a certain scope, and in this case we defined the object div1 object here in div1, we cannot use it in a sibling. Okay, that div2 is a sibling of div1. We cannot use it. We can also not use it in a parent, because the body itself of the whole document is the parent element of div1. That means scope. Okay, you can use an object only within its scope. Now, let me give you a small, maybe obvious tip. Never leave these errors here in your code, okay? So always get rid of those errors. So, because if you have an error like this in your code, it might affect things that come later after the error. So what I'm gonna do now is that I comment this out here. I just leave it for you for reference in the code, okay? So later you can look on GitHub if you want, but yeah, get rid of these errors. Okay, my friends, just one more thing before I finally let you go. I want to show you now about nesting scopes, and there is a little but very important change between Alpine.js version 2 and the current version 3. Let's go here to this blue div, which is our div1. All right. So first thing I want to do is that I want to make this div a little bit wider. Instead of 72, we're going to use 144 here. All right. And then we also want to give it a class of relative here. Relative, because we want to nest another div inside here with another scope. So we go here behind this break and we will create another div, and we will give this div some classes. We will say bg white, and we will place it absolute, and we will place it top -2 and also right -2. All right, let's write some dummy text in here, save, and then we have this little ugly div here on the top right. Okay, now this div here I want to give another scope. So the scope that we are creating now is inside the div1 scope. Okay, so we will place another x data in here. Okay, and we will say, for example, first an object, of course, and then we will say, we will give a key of nested, for example, and we just say hello here. All right, and then we will give directly an output here. So I bring this class here down, and I'm gonna say xtext here, and we will output this nested key, and then we have hello here. But also I want to have an output of our div1 object here, which is one level up scope wise. So what I can do, I go again here inside this div, Actually, let's make 2 spans here. Span times 2, like this. So the first span will have this xtext nested here, like this. Let's delete it here. Right. And the second one will have this xtext from the level above, which is the div1 object. Okay, let's copy here and then put it in here. A break in between. Okay, so we have the hello from the nested div here, and we have the div1, which is the from the scope 1 level up. Okay, this works fine, but the problem is it didn't work in Alpine.js version 2. Let's scroll up here, and here in the top of the document you can see that I included Alpine.js version 3xx. If we change this now to the old version 2xx, you see it disappears here, and we also have an error. Okay, let's make this big and let's look into our console, and here we have an error. Okay, so this is very important when you upgrade your older applications from version 2 to version 3. Let's have a look in the current Alpine.js documentation. Here on the left, the second navigational point is upgrade from version 2. I'm there already. And let's scroll down a little bit, and then you have here this point, x minus data cascading scope. That's the new feature that you can cascade or nest scopes. Okay, he's talking here. Let's stop this. I'm talking now. All right, back to the editor. The really very last thing I want to show you is that you also can use this new nested structure thing and overwrite data from the level above. So if I go here in my nested div after the hello and I overwrite this div1 object from the level above, I can do that. Okay, so I put the same key here, div1 object, and then I can say I am overwritten here. All right, and let's have a look. Sorry, I forgot to go back to version 3 here. Okay, now the error is gone. Now let's have a look. And here it says, I am overwritten. All right, so we overwrote the div1 object. So I'm very sorry, this was a very long and maybe a little bit boring lecture because we just had an output of some text, but it will be more practical in the next lecture when we will do xbind. And that is really cool, and I really look forward to see you there. Ciao, my friends. Bye-bye.